produce, we had tobacco, we had the seafood industries that demanded that free slave labor. So slavery in Maryland, you know, stayed around for, you know, for a while. So that was this. And to say that at this time, that not all black folks were slaves or dressed in slave attire. These folks are here, they've got their Bible and so forth. So that was that. Trying to think of what else is here. Down here in the bottom, what I wanted to say or here is challenging slavery in Maryland. Even though it was still here, we are still here as a people. As I finish up over here, so I can take some questions, I'm gonna move over here. The very last square was this one, okay? So keep in mind that I'd done the quilt, it was all finished, I'm standing back thinking, I'm pretty pleased with this. I pay attention to what people say. My godchild's mother came over to me, she went, Joan, I don't mean any harm, but I'm not feeling this. I'm like, what do you mean you're not feeling it? She said, you know, it's beautiful, you got all the, you know, the information and everything, but I'm not feeling like the breakup of the family. And so I went, oh, okay. It took me about 3 days to really look at it, and I said, you know, she's right. And part of it is because of the format that I chose. Squares that are connected, all even, all separate, so it didn't work. So I had to figure out what to do. So what I did was, on the far side is the big house, you know, with the little teacup and the trees and everything is wonderful. And then this one is the slave panel here with the shotgun house, which was already there. And that basically, so I added this black figure silhouette of a woman with a baby on her back, a la Carol Walker. And I decided then to break the space, come out of the square. Here's a child here, here's a child here, here's a child here, here's a child here. So they're scattered all over the place. And then I added the slave master in white, outlined him in red, added the width here. And then from this, to show the forced relationship here, or rape of this slave woman, because in this space then, slave quarters, you see this half white and half black child that came about as a result of it. That's here. So that was the very last square that I did. And I think that's pretty much it. You'd have to just spend some time with some of the building or some of the squares in Dorchester County. There was the McKim Free School that allowed black children to come in. Right downtown in Baltimore, the General Wayne Inn, that's right off of Fells Point. There's records of slaves being recorded coming into that particular dock. So, and then I added, I'd like to, the three-dimensionality of it. These little people here, the stocks, it's a bidder man asking people to bid for this labor. And these are little clothespins that have been used. You know, so I use a little bit of everything. There is an actual light here for Harriet Tubman. So I do a lot of shopping in dollhouse stores to get little miniature stuff that you can use. So whatever, these are actual pickers' checks. Some of them came from family members from way back. There's also a gentleman at Vincent Hammond House that would sell some of them. He has a whole huge collection. So that's, I guess, basically it, unless you have some questions.
Questions, you guys? You guys are on a time frame of 10
It's
o'clock.
such a beautiful quilt. How long did it take you to build it?
It was a year in the thinking and researching, and then probably another almost year making it, but I worked along with 8 others at the time.
Wow.
So, but it's about a year totally in work.
8 others in helping with the sewing or
No,
helping with the designing?
No, I did all of the designing, all of the piecing for this, and I did take this one into my collaborative group at the time so that they could get a feel for what was going on, and had them do some stitching around the edge. And one of them, I looked up and George was sitting back and he just went, Joan, I've been here for a half hour. I can't imagine for the rest of this quilt. But my family members and community members did help me to, you know, do the final quilting of it. And if you look at it, my mom, who now, God bless her, she's in latter stages of Alzheimer's, but she would be sitting and quilting and be in the same space for the longest time. And when I stopped and I looked at it, I went, oh my gosh, she put little faces in here to show, there are these wonderful little faces here. Okay, so that's my mom's touch. And there's some more over here. There's some wonderful, just little faces that she made out of the designs that were there. Isn't that just, and I didn't discover that until I was talking about it one day while it was on exhibit, and I went, oh my gosh. No wonder it took her so long in that little bitty space. So, but I do all of the designing, all of the piecing, all of the layering, and bulk of it is put together, and then I ask for help, because I have severe carpal tunnel now. So, and I have to tell you that it was something that I really stressed about initially, but, you know, it's this whole community that has come about. We laugh, we sing, we pray, we dance, we tell tales, so that whole community involvement has become a very important part of the process. And I have to tell you that with each of these big quilts that I've done in the community, a huge celebration comes about as well. And we're talking hundreds of people in the process.
I don't know how many of you were aware that
It's amazing.
Joan worked with us last year with Bates Middle School, and we did the entire 6th grade. Each child,
One sixth grade.
we were supposed to do one small quilt was how the project initially started. But as it evolved, the entire 6th grade, each child did a quilt square of their own about the 1960s. We were talking about, we were celebrating the 45th anniversary of integration of the Anne Arundel County Schools. And then, so these individual quilt squares the kids did then went to Joan's loft and were put together by a community of people who were in there for all hours. But what's incredible is the conversation that happens while you're quilting it and working together as a group of, and we're going to try to replicate that here as we move forward with the exhibition, trying to do, we're going to see if we can get Joan to come in and do a quilt on freedom, I think is what I'd like to do here, or liberty or something, in the museum space. So that's one of the plans, as the exhibit stays up now for probably 2 years.
Okay.
So you can all participate now. I was already hinting at that for you. That was going to happen.
So what year did you complete this?
I started the research in 2000, I guess late 2005 and 6, and I finished it toward the end of 2006, and it went on exhibit. So for that. So it's basically, I'm going to tell you, when people say how long does it take, I want to say, let me see, how old am I? I've been teaching 44 years, so I go at this from an art educator, as an artist, you know, all of that. But the thinking is what, and the research that takes the time. And I should say the other piece that was made to go along with this, that's the piece that was stolen from the museum in Baltimore. But it's the research, and I think that's what, you know, just, and the thinking that goes along. Because once I get going, I'm at this square, when I finally did get it all together, and I knew what I was gonna do, it's only maybe a couple of hours, if at best, you know what I'm saying? So, and then the longest thing is quilting the whole thing together, putting it together.
And not to put a damper on that, but since you all in this room right now are frontline staff, you now have just heard that one of Joan's quilts was stolen out of a museum. So this is where, as we're dealing with a couple security issues around here, this is, the objects in this museum are desirable. And I need you guys to really help with the diligence of this. That as large a quilt as this is, it can disappear out the door, which is frightening as all get out.
And it's not just this quilt. When I found out my piece was taken, a couple months after that, they realized that at that same period of time, 5 historic institutions were hit, usually smaller ones where the security is, you know, well. But what has happened as a result of it, that the security has been stepped up in these places here in the state. But all of the pieces that were taken had something to do with slavery in 1860 archives. So they hit Fells Point, place up in Hagerstown, so it's, you know, it's not just this is a big piece, but smaller, you know, documents as well. So, but
This is
I have one-
truly amazing.
thank
It really
you.
is.
I
I
just
haven't
have-
memorized all the blocks,
Okay.
but I need to
Yeah,
memorize them.
I am in the process, I told Heather, of
An
putting
outline,
together a
like an
booklet.
outline?
Yeah, so this is basically the
Yeah.
basic grid to tell you, but I'm putting together more of a detail.
I just have one question because I might have missed it when you were talking. The little corners of the lace, the.
Your
lace-
Oh, the angels. Oh, yeah, I
yeah.
didn't even talk about that. They're angels, I put angels in the corners to signify sort of, there is this sort of spiritual presence that happens in our world. You can call it what, you know, what you will. But the angels end up on all of my quilts. Because in the event of whether it's something wonderful happening or something that is a real trial, there still is, I believe, sort of another presence that is in sort of all aspects of our lives. So in some of the one of the quilts, I use lemons or citrons, which is a symbol of a more heavenly presence around. So, and these angels are made by an artist friend of mine, Ruth Taylor. They call her the Angel Lady. And she also made the one that's here in the center, so I use them as a focal piece as well. I forgot what that was there, okay, yes.
What makes mudcloth mudcloth?
It's the way that it's done, it's like a batik or a dye, and they, like when you put wax on Easter eggs or
Okay.
on eggs, and you didn't dip it in the dye, the wax acts as a retardant so that the dye doesn't get to it. Mud is used in its place, and then it's dyed. And now it's become a real fashion statement. Initially, its purpose was to bury the dead. So, which also makes it, in my mind, very symbolic for its use. Other questions? Good.
Excellent, thank you, Joan. Thank